the One Nation leader, Pauline Hanson. Pauline, happy birthday to you.
Hi, Chris. Right, yeah, thanks, Chris.
Well, it's been out there. It's been out there.
Yeah, no.
And you've been celebrating your birthday with a birthday cake shared with Clive Palmer.
Yeah.
What on earth were you two chatting about?
I know, he came to my office and he arrived with this beautiful bunch of roses and flowers and 2 cakes, which I shared with my staff, and it was beautiful of him and very kind of him to do that. So he was supposed to have a meeting with James Ashby, but I was there, so I had the meeting with him. But it's just to pass on and say, hi, how are you going? Just a little bit of advice. These people like to, you know, pass on their concerns and everything that he said about the cost of living, about, you know, what's happening with Australians out there that are, you know, doing it tough. And only he told me over 7 million people in Australia are actually only getting 1 meal a day.
No chance that
Clive was
Clive
very
Palmer,
concerning to me.
No chance that Clive Palmer's going to jump on board with One Nation?
No, there was no talk about that whatsoever. So, like I have said before, I talk to anyone, you know, billionaires, and I talk to the average person, tradies, you know, farmers. I talk to everyone and get their opinion on policies and where the country's going. And he's backing up everything that I'm saying.
Yeah, the thing that strikes me about Clive Palmer, though, is he's spending a lot of money at the moment on political advertising, just making his own political points, but to no end. There's no party, there's no election campaign. I don't know why he's spending the money. It might be a lot more useful if he put some of that money into One Nation and helped you out with candidates and perhaps put his name up as a One Nation candidate himself.
Before we continue, do us a little favour by subscribing to the channel, because over 98% of you watching haven't subscribed. It costs you nothing, not even a penny, to join this channel. Have you subscribed? Thanks so much.
Forget about the candidate bit, but I would say if he wanted to put some money towards, he might be watching your program now and be told about this. So that might be an indication. Yes, I've got no problems about taking any donations to help us win the next election.
Give us a call, Clive, if you are watching. I'm interested to know what you're doing politically. But did he suggest to you that there might be some money coming your way?
No, no talk about money. Not at all, no. Very complimentary in the way we're going at the moment, how the party's been run. He was very gracious. He was very kind, and it was a beautiful surprise to get the flowers and the cake. So I appreciate that.
Just on your birthday, you know, it's impolite to talk about a woman's age, but you've been around in public life for a while now. When you have a birthday like this...
You're going to say it anyway.
No, I won't say it. I won't say it. But I'm interested in how long you're going to stay in politics. I mean, you've got One Nation really at such a high point at the moment. Can you see yourself being there in another 3, 4, 5 years?
Well, why wouldn't I? How long's a piece of string? If you've come this far after all these years, do you think I'm going to turn my back and walk away from it now, at the point when we're getting traction in Australia? People are starting to wake up to One Nation, what we stand for, our values and principles. Do you think I'm going to walk away? Chris, I can tell you what, I can still leave a lot of those other women for dead on that floor of the Senate, and I'm a lot older than what they are. So don't write me off, and that's what I keep telling people. I can still run down the halls of Parliament when I have to get to that chamber.
What is your thoughts about the 6 ISIS women, Islamic State women, coming into the country last night and none of them being charged?
I'm absolutely disgusted with it. The same as millions and millions of Australians. What the hell has happened to our country? That's what I keep asking the question about. And you mentioned about the Jewish community. How must they feel? You know, Chris, we're in such a decline in this nation, and I believe that the government has lied to us time and time again. Why are we paying for the bills if they're putting it in the hotel? Who's paying for that? Let their families pay for it. Why are we paying for it? And then they ask if the children might want to go to de-radicalisation programs. I wouldn't give them a choice. Chris, if I was in charge of this country, there's no way in the wide world would I would have done everything I possibly could legally to stop them from ever coming to this country again. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to protect this nation. I feel that the tentacles of radical Islam is spreading in Australia, this ideology, and I just don't, I fear for the future.
Well, we have a massive problem in this country with Islamist extremism. We saw that at Bondi, if there were ever any doubters. Yeah. And the idea that you would bring in more people who have been exposed to those radical ideas, in fact, have supported those radical ideas in the past, is just sovereign suicide, in my view, and we've got to do something about it. I've got to get your thoughts on the budget, Pauline. Are you expecting that you'll be sidelined as the negotiations go on about the government's budget measures and potential carve-outs from capital gains taxes and changes to negative gearing? If they make any changes, they'll be negotiated presumably with the Coalition and the Greens, won't they?
Correct. That's right, Chris, they will do. They don't negotiate with me at all on really anything, so they can bypass me. They can go to Pocock. They can go to... Now they've got Tammy Tyrrell in their ranks. She was a Greenie anyway. She's more Green than Labor. And Jackie Lambert, who knows which way that woman votes, but she's hardly ever in the parliament now because of her injuries. She's not well. And Payment, well, of course, she's on the side of Labor anyway. So there's no negotiation with us. But, you know, I think that they've made a big mistake, especially with the capital gains tax. I think they'll reverse it on the businesses. They'll try and keep it on the housing. Tell people this had nothing to do with getting the young ones into the housing. This is about more money into the coffers for the Labor Party. Nothing about getting people into housing. Yep. They could have addressed that by pulling back on mass migration, the foreign ownership of a housing. And if you're going to have the negative gearing, well, then I'd put it to 2 houses. Limit it to 2 houses and let people invest in the housing as they have done to provide for later in life. And the younger ones can invest in a house with negative geared while they're still at home living with their parents to try and pay off the mortgages, then move into the house.
Yeah, that sort of a reform would have got a lot more support. I think they've got the numbers. Of course, they can rail anything they want through the Senate with the Greens, yep. But I think it's the public backlash that's really hurting them here, and they will have to back down on some of these issues. Thanks for joining us, Pauline. I appreciate it. Okay. A birthday appearance by Pauline Hanson, but she...
If there was one political interview this week guaranteed to spark a heated debate, this was it. 1 minute, the conversation was about birthday cakes, surprise visitors and life in Parliament. The next, it had shifted to one of the most sensitive issues in Australian politics, national security, the return of Australians from former conflict zones, and where the government should draw the line between protecting the community and meeting its legal responsibilities. Now, before anyone jumps into the comments with both boots on, let's slow things down for a second, because this isn't a simple story. It's one that's been debated by governments, security agencies, legal experts and politicians for years. This week, One Nation leader Pauline Hanson was asked about reports concerning the return of several Australian women who had previously been in areas once controlled by the terrorist group ISIS. From the very beginning, Hanson made her position clear. She argued Australia should take the toughest possible approach to people associated with extremist organisations and questioned why taxpayers should bear the costs associated with their return and ongoing management. Those comments reflect Hanson's long-standing political position on national security and immigration. The interviewer also expressed concern about extremist ideology and asked whether the government had adequately explained its decisions to the public. That exchange quickly became the centrepiece of the interview. Now, it's important to understand the broader context. Australian governments of both major parties have, at different times, dealt with citizens returning from overseas conflict zones. Those decisions are typically made on a case-by-case basis and involve advice from intelligence agencies, law enforcement, national security officials and legal advisors. Where criminal offences can be proven, prosecutions may follow. In other cases, authorities may impose monitoring, control measures or rehabilitation programs where permitted under Australian law. Exactly how those decisions should be made remains the subject of political debate. Hanson argued that the government's approach placed too much emphasis on bringing people back rather than preventing future security risks. She questioned whether Australians had been given enough information about how such decisions are reached and what safeguards are in place. The interviewer then broadened the discussion, noting that the issue had generated strong public reaction and significant political disagreement. Supporters of tougher policies argue governments should prioritise community safety and apply the strictest possible standards where national security concerns arise. Others argue that governments must operate within Australian law, international obligations, and the advice of security agencies, while recognising that each individual's circumstances may differ. That balance between security, justice, and legal responsibility has been debated in Australia for many years. Outside the studio, reactions continued building. Some commentators argued the government needed to provide more detailed public explanations about its decisions. Others cautioned against assuming that every individual returning from a former conflict zone presents the same level of risk, pointing out that Australian authorities assess cases individually using intelligence and law enforcement information. As the interview continued, the discussion widened beyond one decision and into a broader debate about border security, public confidence, and national safety. And that's where the political stakes become much bigger. For many Australians, national security isn't an abstract policy discussion. It's about feeling safe in their communities. It's about confidence that security agencies have the resources they need. And it's about trusting that governments, regardless of which party is in power, are making careful decisions based on evidence, the law, and expert advice. Those are questions that aren't likely to disappear anytime soon. If anything, they're becoming an even bigger part of Australia's political conversation as global security challenges continue to evolve. As the interview rolled on, the discussion moved beyond one headline and into a much broader question. How should Australia respond when national security concerns intersect with immigration law, citizenship, and international obligations? That's where the political divide really starts to show. Hanson argued that governments should always put community safety first and said Australians want stronger assurances that every decision involving people returning from former conflict zones has been thoroughly assessed. Those comments reflect one nation's long-standing position on border security and national security. The interviewer then shifted the focus slightly. He asked whether the public had been given enough information about how these decisions are made, noting that many Australians still had questions about the legal process, the role of intelligence agencies, and the safeguards in place once people return. It's a point that has surfaced repeatedly over recent years. Governments have generally said that operational details cannot always be disclosed publicly because of national security, privacy, and ongoing law enforcement considerations. At the same time, opposition parties and crossbench politicians have often called for greater transparency where possible, arguing that public confidence depends on clear communication. That tension isn't new. It's something successive Australian governments have had to navigate, regardless of which party has been in office. Outside Canberra, reactions continued pouring in, social media quickly filled with competing views. Some Australians argued the government should explain these decisions in greater detail. Others said security agencies should be trusted to assess risks and make recommendations without political interference. As always, opinions were divided, but one thing most people seemed to agree on was this. National security remains one of the most serious responsibilities any government carries. The conversation then widened again, touching on Australia's broader security environment. Global instability, conflicts overseas, and concerns about violent extremism continue to influence public debate, not only in Australia, but across many Western democracies. That means governments are increasingly balancing several priorities at once, protecting national security, complying with Australian law, working with international partners, and ensuring intelligence agencies have the resources they need to respond to evolving threats. It's not an easy balancing act, and it's one that's regularly scrutinised in Parliament, by the media, and by the public. Back in the interview, Hanson argued that Australians are looking for stronger leadership on issues affecting border security and public confidence. The interviewer, meanwhile, continued pressing on how those concerns should be addressed within Australia's legal framework. That exchange highlighted something often overlooked in political debates. It's possible for people to agree on the importance of public safety while disagreeing about the best legal or policy approach to achieving it. That's why these issues continue to generate so much discussion. They're complex, they're emotionally charged, and they rarely have simple answers. As the interview drew towards its conclusion, the focus shifted from one individual story to the broader direction of Australian politics. Questions about migration, border security, intelligence, policing, and national resilience are likely to remain central issues in the months ahead. Whether those debates take place inside Parliament, on television panels, or around family dinner tables, Australians will continue hearing different ideas from different political parties about the best path forward. Ultimately, those arguments will be judged by voters. For now, this interview has once again shown how quickly one news story can open a much larger conversation about security, accountability, and public confidence. So, what do you reckon? How should Australia balance national security, the rule of law, and transparency when difficult decisions like these arise? Do you think governments explain these issues clearly enough, or is there room for greater public communication? Share your thoughts in the comments below, but please keep the discussion respectful. If you found this breakdown useful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update on Australian politics and current affairs. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.